The controversy around settled status has become another example of how Britain's immigration debate has turned toxic, not simply between parties, but within Conservative ranks itself. This episode began with Katie Lamb's astonishing remarks that some legally settled migrants should go home, leaving behind what she called a culturally coherent Britain. That phrase alone, chillingly redolent of Enoch Powell's ghost, has caused fury across the political spectrum. She hasn't been removed. It suggested only the removal of indefinite leave to remain, but a retrospective cleansing of those who had done nothing wrong except exist in a country where they'd been told it was home. Kemi Badenoch's belated intervention, saying Lamb had spoken imprecisely, was meant as a corrective, but instead exposed the rot, the party that no longer knows what it believes. Chris Philp's draft bill proposing that ILR could be revoked for anyone earning under £38,700 or claiming any form of support was already draconian. Lamb merely stripped away the euphemisms. It took a week of confusion, leaks and backbench panic before Badenoch clarified, "We're not being retrospective," a phrase that offers little comfort to those who now realise they are being discussed in spreadsheets rather than as human beings. Moderate Conservatives have quietly called this a moral and political disaster. To threaten the performance of settled status is to shred the compact that underpins Britain's immigration system. Once the state tells people that permanent residency might be conditional after all, it destroys trust among the very groups it claims to want to integrate. The backlash from Labour and the Lib Dems has been swift, accusing Badenoch of moral cowardice for not removing Lamb and Philp. Yet her refusal is calculated. She cannot alienate her party's nationalist wing, even as she tries to reassure Middle England that she's not Farage in a tailored suit. Well, the point is, she isn't Farage in a tailored suit because she doesn't have his brilliance in public speaking. She can barely string together a sentence without desperately looking around for a cue to see what the next thing she's got to say has got to be. The deeper issue is what this episode reveals about the electorate. The latest sane data show something extraordinary and deeply alarming. British Conservatives and Reform UK voters are, on average, more anti-immigrant than Trump supporters in America. 2/3 say they are uncomfortable hearing foreign languages in public. Over half believe a multiracial society weakens the nation. Have any of these people been to Wales? Have any of these people heard the variety of languages which are part of our national character? Compare that with under 20% of Trump voters holding the same view. Even Labour, Lib Dem and Green supporters in Britain are less positive about immigration than their Democratic counterparts in the United States. In other words, Britain's political soil has grown harsher, less forgiving, more parochial, and all of this presumably is down to Mr. Farage's influence. He has normalised the debate. There are historical reasons for this. America's self-image, however mythologized, is built around immigration, a nation forged by newcomers. Britain's modern diversity dates largely from the post-war period. It remains contested, provisional, and often treated as a problem to be managed rather than a reality to be embraced. Kemi Badenoch and her strategists seem to know this, which is why they oscillate between economic pragmatism and cultural panic, never quite choosing either. But they are also prisoners of a voter base that, post-Brexit, defines national identity through exclusion. In this climate, Katie Lamb's outburst was not an aberration, it was a symptom. She said aloud what many on the Tory right whisper in WhatsApp groups and constituency meetings, that Badenoch now finds herself forced to repudiate her own allies while insisting the party isn't being retrospective, shows the incoherence of a movement that has lost moral ballast. It is trying to please two irreconcilable audiences, the Britain that wants to look forward and the Britain that longs for a vanished monoculture. The Sen findings exposed the danger, a public mood more anti-immigrant than Trump's America, yet wrapped in the language of sovereignty and common sense. When the shadow cabinet debates who should go home and who is culturally coherent, the moral compass has already spun off its axis. Kemi Badenoch may have calmed her front bench for now, but she has not corrected course. Conservatives' flirtation with this rhetoric will leave lasting scars, both on the party and the country, and if the numbers are right, if Reform UK and Tory voters are indeed more hostile to outsiders than Trump's MAGA base, then Britain faces something grimmer than division. It faces moral diminishment. God help us indeed.